What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Another video means another dopamine hike, said to buy something to feel something, and today we're back at it with another review. And for today's review, we are taking a look at Hasbro's Star Wars The Black Series Krrstantan, which is a deluxe figure. Meaning at any point during or after the video you do realize you do want to pick up this figure for yourself, you're going to be getting for $33.99 on Hasbro Pulse, GameStop, Target, Entertainment Earth, and Amazon. If you want to spend a little bit more money, you can get him off the Big Bad Toy Store for $34.99, and finally Walmart is selling him for $39.50 online. I don't know what the in-store price is, but it might be similar to the ones that I mentioned previously for $33.99. And of course, I'll leave links down in the description below for all these online options. And despite how I already feel about this figure, for those who don't know, I'm very happy that Hasbro has given us this kind of a re-release of Krrstantan, because if you don't know, that this is not our first Black Series Krrstantan figure. The first one they gave us was a piece of hot garbage, and it was just a Chewbacca mold that they poorly turned into Krrstantan, but this is, you know, an actual Krrstantan looking figure. So very happy that Hasbro went back and gave us what we wanted. But like I said, despite how I feel about this figure already, yeah, let's get into it. So the packaging is our standard large figure or deluxe figure size packaging, and it's the environmental friendly packaging, meaning the only thing plastic included is the figure and their accessories. On the side we have a nice photo of everything that is included, and on the back we have a nice large photo of Krrstantan and a brief description of what he is all about. And with all that said, let's open up this box and get to reviewing. And starting off with the head articulation, and unfortunately there really isn't any. Like, you can get these like small little twists out of it, but that's really about it, which really sucks because Krrstantan is this character who speaks through action rather than, you know, talking, because he speaks only in Wookiee, and it really sucks that we can't do that with the figure as well. I understand the hair mold and all that, you know, to make it look good you do have to sacrifice the head articulation, but it just sucks that there isn't really any head articulation at all. Then when it comes to the arm articulation, we cannot get a 360 rotation up and over, but if we do bring up the arm a little bit, we can spin it 360 degrees, so there's still that going for us. And then when it comes to the elbow bend, it's not exactly the best because it's just kind of a 90-degree bend. I prefer if my elbow bends go past 90 degrees, then we can rotate the elbow and that forearm 360 degrees as well, which is still nice to see. And then when it comes to the hand, we can rotate the hand 360 degrees and kind of bend the wrist a little bit. The hair does get in the way, and overall I am kind of disappointed with the arm articulation here, or the lack of there, I should be saying. I understand that it's the mold of the figure limiting these joints, but it still sucks to see, because don't get me wrong, the joints work fine. It's not the joints, you know, being all faulty, it's the literal build and mold of the figure that is stopping the joints from doing their job, which is, you know, again, sucks to see. Then looking at the torso articulation, we can rotate the torso 360 degrees, which is always nice to see, and then we can have this nice back and forth movement that we're used to seeing on all our Black Series figures, so that's nice. And then we can have them tilt side to side a okay amount. Again, this is about what we're used to seeing, and then we can get that nice spherical rotation. So overall, despite what we're seeing already, the torso articulation is good. And then finally, getting to take a look at the legs, we can rotate the legs 360 degrees, which is always nice to see. And then of course we can get a full on split with this guy, so awesome to see there. And then of course we can bring the legs up so we can have him sit on the ledge of a cliff or in a chair or wherever you want him to sit, so nice to see that. And then when it comes to the knee bend, it isn't exactly, you know, the worst. You can get him to, you know, put him in some action poses or running poses or anything like that, so it's nice to see that there. And then of course we can rotate the knee down 360 degrees, and then the foot you can rotate 360 degrees and bend the ankle pretty much however you please. The hair does limit it a wee bit, but not by a whole bunch, so it's not the end of the world. So overall, very happy with the leg articulation on this figure. It's about as what I expected, it's what I wanted, so very happy to see that. And honestly, I'm kind of bummed out about the overall articulation of this figure. I understand that it's not the actual joints themselves that are at fault. I know the joints are, you know, the same joints that we see with most figures that work well and fine and give us great articulation, and it's just the mold and all the hair on Krrstantan, because in order to get the actual look of Krrstantan down, a lot of hair and, you know, different parts of his bodies had to kind of limit and, like, you know, get in the way of these joints that, you know, give us the good articulation we're so used to seeing. So I understand that, you know, they had to sacrifice articulation for visual presentation, but it just sucks to see. And for our one accessory included, we do have Krrsantan's big blaster that we see in the book of Boba Fett, and I think Hasbro did such a great job at recreating it. I don't have any reference to put in the bottom left corner, but looking at this one image, I do think they did a great job with the sculpt work and just recreating all the little details that we saw in the show. They even got the red lights on the side and even the heat wear and tear on the end of the barrel, so I think Hasbro did a great job doing this weapon justice for our figure. And if you want to display the weapon on his back, you can do that through peg and peg hole. You all know how this works. A lot of toys do it, so I'm not going to explain it, but yeah, there you go. The weapon is now on his back. It feels nice and firm, doesn't feel like it's going to come off, and yeah, I thought that was a little cool thing that they decided to include. So yeah, very cool, Hasbro. So unlike the articulation, the visual presentation of Krrsantan is amazing. Hasbro did such a great job at, going back and actually taking their time and giving us a Krrsantan figure we wanted to see. So props to Hasbro for, giving us a figure that we want. And I'm not going to sit here and act like that, just because the visual presentation is really good, that I'm going to just, forget about the articulation that was sacrificed. It bums me out that in order to have this figure to look really good, we had to sacrifice head articulation and arm articulation. In a perfect world, we'd have this figure be, beautifully, visually executed and have great articulation, but for some reason they could only choose one and they prioritized visuals over, the feel of the figure, which sucks to see, especially because this is a deluxe figure and you are paying deluxe price for that said figure. So don't get me wrong, even though I do enjoy the visual presentation of this figure, and I'm going to say a lot of good things about the visual presentation of this figure, I'm not going to forget or act like I don't know what the cost of this good visual presentation came at. So let's start by addressing the sculpt work and going over the hair first, because that is mostly what he's made up of, and I think Hasbro did such a great job at getting all the different parts of his body, having the hair flow naturally and really bringing this figure to life with just all the different layers and leveling of hair. So props to Hasbro for getting that all down, because hair is not an easy thing to sculpt, let alone a character where their entire body is covered in hair. So props to Hasbro for getting that down. And Hasbro even got down all the engravings and line work and just all the wear and tear that we see on Krrsantan's armor. And, maybe not all of us saw that in the initial release of the Book of Boba Fett, but Hasbro took note, got it down, so even if you didn't catch it on screen, you can see and appreciate it here on this figure. So props to Hasbro for getting down all this, little niche details that you may or may not have seen in the Book of Boba Fett. And they even went as far as to get down the little pieces of armor on his knuckles, so I thought that was nice to see as well. And then looking at the paintwork for this figure, we can see that Hasbro also knocks it out of the park in this department, because just looking at his hair, this is Black Krrsantan, and we can see with his age he is starting to gray, and there's not just like one shade of gray, there's different shades of gray, and it's kind of sprinkled around throughout his entire body. It's not just in his face or any other individual part of his body. You can see all over that the gray is starting to fade in with his age, which is really cool to see. And then looking at his armor, we can see that it's kind of has this metallic kind of shine to it to tell that it is armor, but it's not brand new shiny armor. We can see the wear and tear, we can see weathering, we can see it's been places, and that there's a story to tell behind what has caused these marks. So again, I think Hasbro did such a great job at executing the paint job on this figure, and it really complements all the sculpting that they got down on him as well. And overall, I can say that the visual presentation is phenomenal despite the cost of it. So overall, very happy with the visuals of Krrsantan. Let's put this large Wookiee into scale with some size comparisons, starting off with this Star Wars The Black Series Imperial Stormtrooper. Then we have NECA's Alien Big Chap, NECA's Predator 2 Elder Predator aka Greyback, Jazzwares The World of Halo Infinite Master Chief, Jazzwares The Spartan Collection Mark 7 Spartan, and finally we have McFarlane's The Doomslayer. Here we are at the turntable segment of the video. This is pretty much where I go over what I like, dislike, pros, cons, strengths, weaknesses, stuff like that, general thoughts and opinions, and give y'all something to bounce off of and go down in the comment section below and get a conversation started. And I'll most likely reply to y'all's comments, because obviously I like talking about this stuff. And unfortunately for this figure, the sour section is going to be a little bit more lengthier than what I do like about this figure, so just buckle up and Here we go, starting off with the lack of head and arm articulation. I understand that the mold, in order to have this figure look good, we had to sacrifice articulation, and like I said, in a perfect world, we'd be able to have good articulation and great visual presentation, but it just sucks to see that this figure can't really look around at all, because like I said before, because, you know, Krrstantan speaks in Wookiee, we don't really know what he's saying, so he has to show a lot of his emotions through action rather than speaking to us, because he does not speak English, and so it sucks that he can't really move around as much as we'd want him to, whether it's in his head or arms. And one thing I want to point out with the arm articulation that really sucks is he does sometimes have a hard time positioning his blaster. I didn't really show it in the video, but I can tell you from experience, it is kind of a bitch and a half to get him to hold his blaster properly because of the limited arm articulation. So yeah, it does suck to see this limited articulation in the head and arm region, and it doesn't just, you know, suck because it's sucky articulation, but it affects other things for this figure as well. And then one thing that I haven't mentioned that really bothers me about this figure, and it's the fact that Hasbro is selling Krrstantan as a deluxe figure. It just doesn't make sense, because all we're getting is the figure and the accessory that he is supposed to come with. We're not getting any special gadgets or blast effects or anything extra like that. We are just getting the figure and the accessory that they're supposed to come with. It's no different than seeing any clone trooper, stormtrooper, or any other individually, you know, base retail Black Series figure. You know, it's where it's just the figure and the accessory they're supposed to come with. It just doesn't make sense to me. And some might argue that it's because it's a unique mold and he's larger than most Black Series figures, but then we look at the Wrecker figure. The Wrecker figure is a unique mold who is larger than most Black Series figures, but Hasbro sells him at base price because that's what he's supposed to look like. Those are the accessories he's supposed to come with, and yet, you know, he's sold at base price, so why isn't Krrstantan? It just isn't making sense to me at all. So I personally believe that this figure shouldn't be labeled a deluxe figure and shouldn't be going for $33.99. I believe that this should just be a normal figure that they sell at base price. I don't care that this is a unique mold. We've seen unique molds already be sold for base price already, so I don't know why they would start with Krrstantan. Now, with all that sour out of the way, the only thing I really like about this figure is the visual presentation. I'm very happy that Hasbro went back to give us a actual, you know, Krrstantan looking figure rather than giving us a shitty, you know, Frankenstein Chewbacca but not figure. So again, credit to Hasbro for giving us a proper looking Krrstantan figure that does look really good. Again, it bums me out at what the cost was of getting this good looking figure, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. It bums me out, but it is what it is. So yeah, overall, good looking figure. Can't complain about the visuals. And that's pretty much all I have left to add to this figure. To summarize my overall thoughts and opinions, I think that the articulation is somewhat disappointing. Don't get me wrong, the torso and leg articulation is great, but you know, the head and arm articulation, you know, the two things that are very important for a figure, the articulation there is kind of disappointing. But don't get me wrong, that this figure does look really great. I have no complaints whatsoever with the visual presentation. So if you're just getting this figure simply to put them on display, you will, you know, get all the mileage you want out of it. But if you are someone who likes to make mocks or stop motions or anything where you need good articulation, or you would ideally need good articulation from a figure, you're not going to get a whole lot of mileage out of this figure because of how limited the articulation in the arms and head are. And again, I don't think that this figure is worth $33.99. Even if the figure was perfect in the field of articulation, I wouldn't say this figure is worth $33.99 because it doesn't do anything that a deluxe figure does. It doesn't come with any special gadgets or accessories or anything. It's just the figure with the accessory that they're supposed to come with. So yeah, that is just me summarizing my overall thoughts about this figure. Definitely wait till this figure is on sale because yeah, no, it ain't worth the $33.99, chief. But for those who already have this figure, please tell me down below, do you like or dislike this figure, and what do you like or dislike about this figure? Because I obviously love getting a conversation started, because obviously I love talking about this stuff. And with all that said, let's move on to the outro. So if you enjoyed today's video, a like and a subscription would be phenomenal. If you want to comment, you're more than welcome to. If you don't want to, I get it, it's a lot of effort, but if you do want to bounce off anything I said during the video, I'll most likely reply to y'all's comments, because obviously I love talking about this stuff. And don't worry, we both know that the bell is broken, so don't even worry about touching that. And if you do like seeing content like this, there's plenty of it up already on the channel. I've reviewed a bunch of Star Wars, the Black Series stuff already. I also do Halo stuff and NECA stuff as well, predominantly Predator and Alien stuff in the realm of NECA, so go check that out if that interests you. And with all that said, please have a great day and please stay hydrated. It is important.